Right then, let's make a start. So, hello everyone, and welcome to Webio's first webinar of 2021. Today, our webinar is going to be hosted by Kirsty Dorr, who is CEO of Webio, the B2b website personalization platform. And today we're going to be talking about plugging the gap in your B2B digital demand generation. But before I hand over to Kirsty, just a couple of housekeeping bits. We have built in some time for questions towards the end of the session, so do feel free to pop them into the chat and I'll pick them up towards the end and we can ask Kirsty those fantastic questions from you all. But without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Kirsty. So Kirsty, over to you.
Hello everybody, thank you for joining and thank you Chris for the intro. Today we are going to talk about plugging the personalization gap in your B2B digital demand generation. And to start with, I just want to give a 2-second intro of me because I see it from all sides. I've been a client-side marketer, I've run a B2B agency, and now I am working as a vendor. So I feel the pain of all B2B marketers worldwide because I've been there, done that, and hopefully I'll be presenting this through your lens today and you'll get some great actionable insight out of the presentation. So what we're going to be covering, so we're going to talk about how B2B marketers are using personalization today. And this insight has come from some research that we have run with B2B marketing at the end of last year. We're going to talk about the personalization gap. So this is the gap that we have identified in our personalization efforts based on the research that we actually carried out. We're going to talk about 6 tips to close that gap, examples of brands who've closed it and the kind of results that they're getting, and then we're going to show you Webio in action. So you've got the opportunity to see how it might be able to work for you. So before we go into the detail around personalization, let's go back to today's webinar, plugging the gap in your B2B digital demand generation. So I think most of us are here because we realize that in today's COVID era, digital is basically where it's at. We're missing so many of our core demand drivers now, events, how we miss events, direct mail, all of the things that we used to have as a key part of our marketing journey are not available to us. So we are competing in a really, really crowded space. And more than ever, I love this image, more than ever, our messages are diluted by a screen. So we need to work even harder to make them stand out. As B2B marketers, there is no moving away from the fact that personalization is now a hygiene factor in our integrated campaigns. We would never dream about pushing out any communication that wasn't personalized or designed to be as relevant as possible to the audience that we're reaching. And the success of our ABM strategies demonstrate that this is marketing done right, not least because B2B buyers are consumers too, and they naturally expect that personalized experience because they've been driven to buy that way in their everyday lives, right through from when they do that online supermarket shop to the way that they are advised to binge watch TV on a weekend. Everything is personalized. So we expect that in the B2B buyer journey too. And at Webio, you naturally would expect us to be convinced on the ROI benefits of personalization. Of course we are, in terms of driving demand. But let's look at some of the stats that are, so obvious from Gartner's Maximize the State of Personalization survey, which show us, yes, personalization creates great customer experience. Yes, personalization makes clients feel valuable, but ultimately, and most importantly, it genuinely contributes towards our business goals. So 49% of B2B marketers say that personalized content is their most effective channel. It's delivering a 5 to 15% increase in revenues and an up to 30% increase in marketing spend efficiency. And the 4 key reasons for personalization haven't changed either. As Gartner shows in their state of personalization, here they are. main focus is around driving engagement and driving conversion, which is where we're going to focus on in the talk today. So how have Webio uncovered this personalisation gap? Well, as a vendor, we wanted to understand where B2B marketers are on their personalisation journey. Anecdotally, we see our US clients being slightly ahead of the curve on their personalisation journey than our UK clients. So in UK, the conversation is still definitely, should we personalise? And then the US, the conversation is, how should we personalise? So, you know, there is that we're seeing, but we wanted to actually hear it from our audience of B2B marketers, carry out that research and understand where they were. And so in conjunction with B2b Marketing, we pushed out a piece of research at the end of last year to build a picture of where personalisation fits in the overall marketing efforts of B2B marketers today. And I hope you'll find the results useful for your own benchmarking. So the great news is the majority of us, so 75% of us, are using personalisation in some form. It's also pretty much on everybody's radar as well, with 95% of respondents to the survey saying they are either using personalisation or planning to use it in future. But there does still seem to be a big challenge around measurement on the personalisation improvements that are being delivered, with only 63% saying that they are seeing personalisation as being effective or very effective. If there was one thing that leapt out of us in the survey, it was that outbound is the key leader within all of our personalisation efforts. So 60% of us are using outbound across our channels, but just 31% of B2B marketers who responded said that they were personalising both inbound and outbound activities. And a huge 69% said either we're just using outbound or worse, like we're not personalising at all. So there is some work to be done to get people over that chasm and start to, you know, really drive personalisation across all of their activities. The main key channels used for personalisation reflect this outbound bias as well. So we asked the respondents to tell us, you know, what channels are you most likely to use within your personalisation efforts? As you would expect, the most popular channel is email, followed by paid social, programmatic display, and then subsequently direct mail. So channels, I suppose, that the B2B marketer can control to some extent in terms of how they communicate with their audience. And that led us to ask, is this the same in ABM? Because in ABM, you know, personalization is designed to be taken to the next level, but are we still just focused on outbound only? Or are we improving our personalization efforts across the board when we start our ABM campaigns? Well, the answer is not quite. I pulled this great diagram from the ITSMA ABM benchmark study that talks about the top tactics that are used across all three types of ABM. So we have one-to-one, one-to-few, and one-to-many. But if you look at the main tactics that are being used, it's really only the one-to-one ABM where there feels like there is inbound activity that's being personalized. So obviously you've got your account-specific custom content and thought leadership, but equally, what we can't see is how the buyer is arriving at that. Is that being pushed out to them in a personalized way, or are they coming to that organization and having that served to them? And then obviously, as you would expect, in-person events are very, very powerful, but we know that today, and in this digital space that we're operating in, that is not a current part of our toolkit. So we need to think about inbound and what we do differently. So seeing all of this insight brought us to one conclusion in Webio. There is absolutely a personalization gap that exists in B2B marketing. And we find it easier and potentially more measurable to personalize our outbound activities, because that's where we can, really see the results and really control what we're pushing out, and we focus our energies there. But that does mean that the experience our B2B buyers are getting is really quite jarring, because on one side, we're recognizing them, we're understanding their needs, we're responding to them in our communications in a way that says, yes, we understand you, yes, here's some relevant content for you. But then on the other hand, when they decide we want to come to you on our own terms, they're getting the same generic experience as every single other buyer that we maybe haven't communicated with already. And that is, really a poor experience for the buyer, because they're feeling like, okay, let's give an example. I call it like, you go to a party and you meet someone who get on brilliantly with, you connect, you're talking to them, you remember things about them, and then the next time you see them, you're in the supermarket, you completely blank them. Not relevant anymore. And that is kind of the experience that our buyers are getting, inbound versus outbound. It's like push, push, push. We understand you, we get you. But when it's pull, it's like, no, it's much more generic. And to put it another way, what we're actually saying is, when we can control the conversation, when it's on our terms, we'll give you this great experience, but when you want to interact on your terms, generic is the best we can do. And that's really not the best customer experience. And it's so obvious when you think about it as a marketer. We really do need to step up and take our inbound personalization efforts to the next level. So as part of the survey, we also asked respondents, what are the barriers that are stopping personalization from progressing? The first one was available technology being unable to facilitate a quality level of personalization. So, B2B buyers or B2B marketers not feeling that the effort versus the reward was there in the terms of the technology that they saw. Lack of understanding on how to use the tools that are available. And I think as vendors, we need to take responsibility for this, because you only have to look at Scott Brinker's, MarTech infographic and just see why B2B marketers might be so bewildered. I mean, you only have to look, there's probably hundreds and hundreds of personalization tools that are there. It's our job as vendors to direct our efforts to organizations that we know we can work with, and where B2B really does come into its own from a personalization perspective. The other one is difficulty bringing together all personalized options, again, to form one cohesive personalized approach. I think that again sits on the shoulders of us, the vendors. Like integration into all the key parts of your MarTech stack should just come naturally. And then inability to effectively measure success on personalized marketing on ROI. So things like testing, learning, serving personalized versus non-personalized are all really smart ways to be able to do that, and your vendors should be facilitating those for you. So where is the biggest personalization gap? So this is where we bang the drum really, really hard in Webio, because the website, the one part of the buyer journey where your prospect returns to again and again and again, they're in, research stage, they're on your website, they are, looking at different vendors and comparing vendors, they're on your website. They are in an RFP process, they're on your website. They're a customer, they're on your website. So it is the most influential touch point the B2B buyers say they have when making that buying decision. And it's also our biggest personalization gap. So it really doesn't have to be. And we wanted to talk about 6 different ways that you can almost close that gap and start to really give the customer that rounded experience that they naturally expect. So the first one is blending inbound with outbound. So we've nailed outbound personalization. We're doing it effectively, but we need to make the experience seamless and deliver what buyers expect and crave. So we have to be better at joining up those dots. Personalisation is not new. We've all done the hi at individual name at company name emails for many, many years, but that isn't going to help your buyer. What's going to help your buyer is rich, segmented personalisation that is based on data and insight. So our first step would be like basically map out your buyer journey and look at all the touch points you have that are with the customer that have the opportunity to be personalised, and then identify your sources of failure. Obviously, the website is by far the most influential element, but it doesn't stop there. So things like in your digital journey, does your live chat recognise your buyer? Are they talking to them differently the second time that they visit versus the first time they visit, or are they talking to them differently based on their industry or the size of their business? Are you refreshing the content that you're serving for returning visits, acknowledging that they are in a different place in the funnel compared to those first-time visitors? You know, and going right through to, does your inbound sales development team have a complete picture of your buyer so that they can call on that from CRM as soon as they pick up the phone and speak to them? And doing this exercise will really help uncover all the gaps you have and help you make choices on where to start filling them, really to make the most impact. Next step, next tip is reimagining that customer journey. So most of us won't be using customer journeys that we created pre-COVID, but we are having to be more agile than ever. So now is still a good time to start working with all your customer-facing teams and craft those up-to-date maps. So given that prospects don't neatly fit into stages, we may need to take more of an agile approach at the moment. And one of the things that our clients are doing much more of, and we're doing more of, is looking at how we can use personalization as part of, you know, an agile approach to funnel juggling. So this means pushing out an overarching strategic message at a personalized level for a period of time, and then switching that to a more tactical personalized offer to kind of almost ignite demand and start to push your leads through, then switching back to a brand message. And because so much is changing and so much is happening in our world, having that linear funnel where we don't change anything for some time just isn't working anymore. But you can do that in a really personalized way, because the way buyers engage and select vendors are changing. And the other thing I would say is it's probably a really good time to look at your personas. How detailed are they? When did you last update them? And again, think about those buyer-based journeys accordingly. Tip number 3, put personalization at the heart of what you do. So the only way to really do this is to establish trust-based relationships. And you know, I think we've learned more than ever during the last year that humanizing our marketing is going to create the most powerful content with our audience. And while technology can go a long way in terms of getting you there, to achieve the full potential of personalization, you're going to have to lean really hard on your teams individually. And insight is going to become key to everything that you do, harnessing the input of both your marketing and your sales teams to make that happen. So, you know, to create personalization at every stage of the journey, inbound and outbound, capturing data as the buyer moves through the journey that's both qualitative, so from your sales team, from the conversations they're having, and quantitative, so things like what they've downloaded, how they've moved through the website, lead scores, etc., needs to become an integral part of your process. And we find to make it most powerful, you need to look at that both on organization level and also at individual buyer level while you can, because your organization is going to have one, overarching objective, and then individual buyers within that decision-making unit may have different ones. So you can create personalizations based on those different audiences at scale. Tip number 4, deploy website personalization software. So guys, it is a gap. And, yes, we provide B2b website personalization software, so we are going to say this, but it delivers results. So it delivers increases in conversion, which is what we all want. from the moment a buyer lands on your site, they expect and deserve to get an effortlessly relevant experience. And it isn't hard to deliver. You know, this now can be done with user-friendly software. Non-technical citizen marketers can now easily create personalizations that are delivered as soon as a buyer arrives on the website with no HTML, no coding experience. And we should never underestimate the impact of giving your buyer exactly what they need and fast, because it's not just about relevance, it's about time. If I'm here and you've shown me that you get me, you understand me, you give me the stuff I need quick, I'm going to be much more likely to engage with you. If you're starting your personalization journey and want to start delivering results as quickly as possible, your best bet is to choose a solution that is data inclusive. So capturing your inbound visitor and dynamically delivering the right content has to be based on accurate data about them. And this comes from a combination of rich, accurate IP data and also instant access to the rich data inside either your MA platform or your CRM. So having all of that in one place, I mean, you can literally, you know, plug that in and you're starting to deliver those experiences will make your ability to be able to test, learn, get quick wins as easy as possible. And then tip number 6, leverage all the data you currently have with powerful integrations. So it goes back to the barriers to success that the respondents cited in the survey. Ultimately, you know, if it's all joined up, if you're integrating with your MA platform, whether you have HubSpot, Marketo, Pardot, if you're integrating with your CRM, all of that data that exists that you work so hard to create, where you know what stage in the funnel all of your buyers are, can just be plugged into your personalization software, and using your tracking cookies can literally support you serving even more personalizations. So you've got your IP-based personalizations at organization level, and then you've got your cookie-based personalizations, both at individual level and organization level. So you're getting double whammy there. This really helps you move beyond just, you know, acquisition from a personalization perspective, and starts to allow you to think about how could we talk to our customers differently, moving the needle towards things like upsell and cross-sell. So all well and good talking about a personalization gap. I'm sure, you know, it's been insightful to see that actually there is an issue and we can do something about it. But what I wanted to do now is just take a few minutes to show you some brands who have done it and the kind of results that they're getting, so you can see for yourself. So the first one is a client, Hive HR, who's using personalization at scale. So they are focused on vertically based personalized experiences, talking to each of their different audience segments from an industry perspective. So you can see here we have a version of their website that is generic, and then we have a version of their website which is designed for the retail sector. So they're a HR software business, and you can see straight away a retail business arrives on the site, and immediately the headline changes, the image changes, the copy changes to make it more relevant to that buyer. Even the CTA and the journey that they're going to go on looks different. And then in terms of the proof points and the logos that they're showing there, it's like, yes, these are the same as you. These we get you. Here's other people like you. And then right down to the images of the portal that they're showing them, which are more relevant to those HR directors within the retail sector. And it's driving great results. So if you remember earlier, one of the key challenges that buyers talked about, or B2b marketers talked about, was around measurement. Well, with the testing functionality that you should have in place with these platforms, you know, you can see the difference measurably. And what you have to do is picture personalized experience versus a non-personalized experience in an A/B test, and the results are there. So for Hive HR, what they're seeing is 28% drop in bounce rate, 30% increase in average pages visited, 61% increase in time on site. But the one that really people care about most is that big increase in book a demo. So 438% increase in book a demo conversion when they receive a personalized experience versus none. Here's another great example of how to use personalization, but more from an ABM perspective. So we have our client True Commerce here, and what you can see here is a version of the website that is there, again, a generic version, but think about your ABM targets, like your top 100 ABM accounts that you've identified, that's part of your strategy. And equally, the ones that if you spoke to the sales team about today, they would say, oh, we're so close with these guys, you know, they're ideal fit for us, we're working really hard to get them. Those are the businesses you need to create ABM experiences for. And so personalization here isn't just about, we understand your industry, we understand businesses that look like you, it's like we get you. And so here we have an experience that True Commerce created for Danone, again, all using you know, easy software, drag and drop, different imagery, obviously different headlines and copy, uploading a video that obviously has been designed for that brand, a relevant FMCG food and drink case study. And this works really well for, you know, trying to, you know, from an acquisition perspective, but also when clients are in the funnel or RFP stage and they're going back and back to your website, creating that experience, again, will give you the edge over and above your competition. And again, some great results here, 50% increase in conversion on that contact page. So if you remember, I spoke earlier about integrations and the power of using your own data to leverage personalization. So Webster are a super user of website personalization because they're looking at it from an at-scale perspective, at industry level. They're also doing some ABM, but they are personalizing to their channel in a different way than they would personalize to their end users. And the way that they've managed to do that is through the HubSpot integration. So they have all their channel partners, obviously, in the data there. And a channel partner doesn't want to see the same message that an end user does. So they go onto the website, they see a very different message for those managed service providers compared to the generic message that, you know, a school or a hotel or someone in financial services might see. And that just means these guys are getting straight, again, it goes back to give me the stuff that's important to me now. And it's so easy to do because all of that data already exists within their HubSpot. So again, powerful results here, 80% increase in time on site, 38% increase in average pages visited, 478% increase in conversion. I've got another example to show you here, just to show you that it's not, we tend to think that personalization is reserved for technology and SaaS businesses who are, you know, perhaps more considered to be ahead of the curve, but it's a really nice example of, you know, manufacturing business using personalization really, really well, talking to builders merchants, again, in a completely different way to how they might talk to architects or construction companies who are buying their products. And again, getting a great increase in conversion. And then the final one is B2b Marketing. So we've been working with B2b Marketing now for nearly 2 years. They are personalizing, both looking at industry level, but also for them, because the US is really important to them, creating different experiences for their different territories, so geographically. And again, seeing great results. Much more time on site, much more significant increase in conversion for those guys too. So those are some case studies. Hopefully that's brought it to life. There's nothing better, I think, than seeing how other brands are using it and the kind of results that they're getting. Now,
a couple of questions come through on the chat. The first one is from Laura, and she says, if businesses are experiencing difficulties in effectively measuring the success of personalised marketing from an ROI point of view, how do you know that your clients have been able to measure their ROI effectively?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, it is about the reporting that exists within the platform. And as Liam showed us in the experiences that he created, we always advise clients to run an A/B split test when they start using Webio. And Webio will take the measurability of that personalized experience right through to an online conversion. So typically our clients' online conversions are either request a demo, make an inquiry. We do have a number of e-commerce clients where that's taking it right through to sales. So we can see like an average personalized sale increases by 200% versus non-personalized, or we can see an increase in conversion on a personalized experience to demo versus not. So they can absolutely see the results they're getting in terms of the uplift in terms of their outcome that they want to drive from the website. And then we do encourage clients to think about how that's going all the way through. So if a client has an integration, there are ways that we can put flags on their data to say that business was personalized too, and then look at how that has impacted the overall journey. So do the order values increase when a business is personalized too? Is the time to sale, the kind of like pipeline journey shorter? Do they convert at a higher rate? So we can do that if we have an integration with a client, but for the most part, it's about taking it right through to what's the outcome that they're driving from the website, and that's the genuine ROI.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. Another question here from Mark. Do you have any tips on the best website pages to personalize and fresh ways to stand out?
Sure, yeah. So in terms of where we advise our clients to start, so we always say let's start with personalization at scale and then move on to ABM, because you're just going to get bigger bang for your buck doing that. And obviously the homepage, because that's where a client's going to come in at. If there is a specific product or pricing page, we would always advise those to be personalized by vertical. Again, if there's a content and resources page, that should be personalized again by vertical. Whatever you're doing firmographic based, whether that be size of organization, those 4 pages are absolutely key. And also whatever you're doing from a CTA perspective, that should be personalized, as well as the book a demo or the inquiry page should all have rich personalization on it as a starting point, and then you can start to move on through the rest of your journey.
Right, thank you. A third question here from Steve. When using Webio, do you have to constantly come up with new content to personalize your websites with?
Yeah, I mean, no is the answer. Because most B2b marketers are already doing it. So we're all creating content as part of our campaigns. And if it exists on your site, you can use it to personalize with. So let's take the example of B2b Marketing and their homepage there, and they've got a page for financial services businesses. Any content that they create on an ongoing basis, be it a white paper, an ebook, a blog, that goes into their resources page, which most brands are doing anyway, you can just pull that in, on a regular basis to get that to keep that page fresh and interesting. So if it's on the site, you can pull it from anywhere. And it's about testing and learning as well. So what we wouldn't advise is to create your first personalizations and then completely refresh them in a very short time. What you need to do is create your first personalizations and then start to change different things about those personalized experiences to build a picture of what is it that's really worked, what's driving the biggest impact. Is it the imagery? Is it the change of content? Is it what we're doing with the CTA? And that's all part of that testing process.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. Another question here from James, who's asked, how is Webio and your client websites compliant with GDPR?
Yeah, so because that's, I guess there's 2 parts of that. So Webio uses IP data, which isn't classed as personal data, is basically business data. So we are processing the data at a business level. We aren't processing any personal data, so it's compliant from that perspective. And then again, when we are using cookie data with our clients' MA integrations or CRM integrations, equally, the client has given their consent for that, so it doesn't affect us from a GDPR perspective.
Okay, thank you very much. And a question here from Brandon, who's asked, on the IP side of things, given so many people are working remotely at the moment, how does this impact personalization, enrichment, and data? Can't rely on things like company IP address fully right now.
Yeah, so certainly when I think the first lockdowns happened, that absolutely did impact the match rate, because obviously people are at home, there might be multiple IP addresses at home, and also not everyone's using VPN. So as an IP data provider, we're obviously having to pivot in terms of the way that we're obtaining those IP addresses, and looking at like smarter ways to almost predict and say, okay, well, if that IP address is here for that period of time, that is highly likely to be that particular business, and that's proving effective in increasing our match rates. But we can't deny that certainly at the start of COVID, we saw a drop, and we've just kind of pivoted and worked hard to bring that up to the levels that they are today.
That makes absolute sense. Any more questions in the chat? I'll give a couple more seconds, but thank you both. That was a great webinar. Thank you very much for sharing that and showing those insights. If you do have any further questions, do reach out. Kirsty's Twitter handle is @KirstyDoor1, or you can also reach us at webio.com. We will make this recording available to everybody, and do also check out our latest ebook on the personalization gap, which has been launched today. If you would like a copy, do get in touch. But thank you very much, and hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, guys. Please do email me on LinkedIn if you've got any further questions. Always happy to answer them.
Great. Thanks very much.